In this video, I'm going to give you 7 tips when traveling to Seattle with small kids, from getting a transportation card to avoiding grocery stores where you can get shot. Welcome to 9 to 5 Abroad. Tip number 1, use the Orca Card. Right as you leave the airport, you can just follow the signs to get to the train station. The first thing that you see is going to be a station to buy one of those Orca cards. You can use those to pay for public transportation in Seattle, and it's a lot easier compared to having to pay cash or whatever other payment options you're going to use. For a tourist, the person who's going to spend just a few days in the city, those cards are absolutely essential. In my opinion, I got one for me and one for my wife. So as you're walking to the station, just buy however many you need for the group that you have. And a good idea it is to calculate at least roughly how much you're going to spend, so you just can put it in a card and swipe away. If you calculate it wrong, you run the risk of putting too much money. That's what I did. I put an additional $10 that wasn't needed. I put a total of $30 and ended up with $8 left in the card. There's a $3 fee. On other videos that I watched, they said that the fee that you pay for the card ends up paying for rides, but no, the fee is just for the physical card that you're gonna get, and then the rest of the money is gonna go for whatever public transportation you use. So keep that in mind. Number 2, big grocery stores. When traveling with kids, especially small kids, you need milk, snacks, and stuff like that. It is not usually easy to bring this in a plane if you're flying into Seattle, so you need to go to a grocery store. We were planning to go to the grocery stores around the apartment we're staying. We're staying pretty close to downtown, so everything there was expected to be expensive. And while we were looking on Google Maps, we had 2 types of grocery stores: small, sketchy ones, still small, but very expensive downtown grocery stores like Whole Foods. Here's a not funny review, but what scared us away from going to any of those stores. This is from 4 months ago. We just got robbed 30 minutes ago by 3 thugs that broke our window to our car and stole a briefcase. An Asian man said that he saw what happened and chased the man with his car until they pulled out a gun. Lesson learned, never go to this place ever. So with the help of ChatGPT, I was able to find a big grocery store in a way between the airport and the city. Because if you take a look, it's a 40-minute ride. So there's a lot of suburbs in between the airport and the actual city of Seattle, or you can get a normal grocery store. We found that there is a Safeway by the Othello station. So we dropped by the Othello station from the airport. We got some groceries that would be necessary to keep the kids happy. We spent about $58. We got milk, we got breakfast stuff, we got a few frozen foods and pre-made salads, and I think fried chicken. So just got food for the times that we were not gonna be eating out. So breakfast or a dinner here or there. We spent $58, and I'm assuming it's cheaper than whatever I would get in town. Definitely safer if possible, and especially if you have kids and you need to buy a lot of stuff, try to find those big grocery stores outside of Seattle. Number 3, use public transportation. As I already talked about the Orca cards, public transportation is enough for you to move around the city and even to the outskirts. Some people may disagree, especially when they're going with kids. But we had 2 kids, we had an infant and a toddler, and we didn't have a car. First, because I didn't want to pay for a rental car. Well, even if I drove into the city, I don't know if I would be happy with having a car there, because the apartment we had didn't have parking, and we had to find parking somewhere, and every time we went to a place, that would be the additional hurdle of trying to find a parking spot and then going. And we were fine without a car, even with 2 kids. I'm going to talk about more things later in the video, but we used the train, we used the monorail, we used a boat, we used buses, all with the stroller. Most of those transportation modes have a space where you can lift up the chairs and put your stroller there, and you can go wherever you want. And depending on where you rent, if it's in downtown, you can pretty much walk everywhere you need. The prices are amazing. If you would compare how much you would pay for an Uber ride from the airport to downtown would run you $50, and we didn't even spend $50 on our cards. It's fast, it's reliable, it's clean, it's safe. So I highly recommend to just use public transportation, even with kids. It's definitely doable. Number 4, walk everywhere. One reason, though, at least the reason for me to go visit Seattle was experiencing the city, big city, the buildings and all the amenities and stuff that you see there. Not much of the attractions, because in my opinion, the attractions were pretty expensive. You have to pick one to go, because anything that you go there, any museum that you get is pretty much $30. And with small kids, I don't think it's worth it. If you have older kids, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds that would actually enjoy any of those activities, then you might consider paying that much money. But if not, just things that the kids would like, seeing a big boat or going on a train, going on a plane, seeing those animals, seeing this, seeing that is already enough for the small kids. So I might skip the museums, and the actual activity that you get to do in the city is just to walk around. This will also depend on where you rent your apartment. Our apartment was in a pretty good location. In fact, if you want to hear more about our experience with our specific apartment, I've recorded a video specific to this, and there's a link in the description. So experiment walking everywhere. Some people may be afraid of the Seattle weather, but to be honest, that was great weather that we got there. It was around 50 degrees. And yes, it was raining. There are a few shots you can see where it's pouring on us. And compared to the locals, we're pretty underdressed, but we didn't feel that much difference. It was very refreshing, especially when we were walking everywhere. So I definitely recommend just trying and walking the city. We only spent 3 days in there, so I can't say how safe the city is, but from our very limited experience or exposure to Seattle, it was pretty safe, and it was very enjoyable to just get to see everything that we got to see just because we walked to the places we were going. Number 5, try the water taxi. As I said, most of the attractions that you're gonna get when you're moving small kids around are just the modes of transportation you're gonna get, and one I definitely recommend is the water taxi. I'm not gonna give a specific price we paid because I don't remember and I don't want to look it up, but it was around $6 out of our Orca cards. So I didn't have to pay anything extra. It was the same card, you just swiped, and we were able to use it, and that was great. There are ferries where you can drive in, and those ferries take you to further places. But I'm talking specifically about the water taxi, a 15-minute ride in the water, and you get to see the city. It's pretty cool. You get in the water, you go further away from the city, and you get to see the skyline. You can get pretty good pictures. That would depend on the weather. Since it was pretty rainy, we couldn't sit on the chairs, but we still could see everything, and it was great. In fact, we went there in November. It's not peak season for people to visit Seattle, so that was great. Everything was pretty much empty. Every time I see videos about people going to Seattle when it's sunny, there's a lot of people there. So there is an upside to going any off season. So yeah, the water taxi was awesome. We got to go there. We were planning to go to the beach, but once we got there, the buses that get from the port to the beach, they didn't fit our stroller. So we just decided to have some food and then make our way back again, enjoying the skyline and taking some pictures. And overall, it was pretty enjoyable. I wish we could go to the beach, but that was fine. The kids still liked it. Number 6, visit the library. I went to the library on my own. I was actually planning to get a library pass because those give free tickets to the museums. I ended up not doing it because they were only taking cash. For a visitor library pass, I didn't have any cash. I actually ended up finding cash in my wallet, but I gave up doing it once I realized I was planning to take kids into a museum. We're planning to go to the aquarium, and we decided not to go. It was not worth the money. But that's a hidden tip. If it works for you, if they allow you to buy visitor library pass, then you can go on their website and try to get a free museum tickets. So you just have to find a free slot for the museum you want to go, and that might be worth it for you if you have older kids or you're by yourself. Oh yeah, and I was talking about visiting the library. So the library is huge. Everything is huge in Seattle, actually. If you look around, I had a hard time trying to capture some buildings when I'm right under them because they're just massive, and I love this. And the library, it's not as tall as the buildings around it, but it's very wide, and it's a glass structure that is pretty to look at from the outside and the inside. You just have to mind the homeless people there everywhere there. But yeah, there's a bunch of homeless people by the entrance, and then also inside the library. The library has a lot of colors. I love that. Other than the actual normal books that you get, you have lots of, well, I like the yellow parts, and there's a floor that is all red, all painted in a shiny red that people like to take pictures. I just took a few shots in there because I was by myself. You get to go to the top, and it's just, there's lots of places to sit down. You know, the city doesn't have lots of places to go use the bathroom. So if you're by the library, it's a pretty good option to just go sit down, search on your phone, whatever, if you're planning to go somewhere else and stuff like that. Really recommend the library to just spend time, or if you need some place to rest while you're downtown, also go to the library. Number 7, use a stroller. Again, on the theme of talking about going to Seattle with small kids, the stroller saved our lives. Because if you have kids, you know that sometimes they have, really small kids, 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, they need to take naps in the middle of the day. If you're walking around or using public transportation, sometimes you're away from your apartment, and it's really hard to go back and then return to continue your activity. But with the stroller, one, they were protected from the rain when it was raining. You can just cover them, put them on a blanket, and they just sleep. They sleep when they need to sleep, and then they wake up. The ones that can walk can go walk, and then you put them back in the stroller. And then if you're willing, you're able to go all day without having to go back to the apartment. You just have to find a place to change diapers and etc. But it was great. That was the first time we got to do something like this, where we were out the whole day, and then there was a kid that was sleeping, then the kid woke up, so we were able to have both kids, and also there was also some storage under, so we had our coats. When the rain went away, we were able to get rid of our coats because it gets hot when you're walking everywhere. So I definitely recommend a stroller. The downside, though, is that the infant pretty much spent the whole day in the stroller. The infant likes to crawl around and put stuff in his mouth, so we didn't want him to do that in any of the places that we were. So it was either in the stroller or on our laps when we were sitting down. So that's a downside for really small kids that cannot explore without getting infected with viruses because they touch everything. Other than that, the stroller was awesome, and as I mentioned earlier, getting in the buses, getting into public transportation with it was just fine. So I definitely recommend having a stroller to move around and be able to be out all day with the kids. That's it. Those were the 7 tips for traveling to Seattle with small kids. Hopefully that was helpful information. This is 9 to 5 Abroad. Thanks for watching.